So hello, I'm Alice,
And I'm Tracy.
and we're just here today to hang out a little bit, and we're going to actually spend a bit of time each talking about some benefits to the various yoga classes that we offer here at Blockhouse Yoga. Just to sort of familiarize yourself, if you haven't had the pleasure of coming to our studio and experiencing any of our classes, we'll just spend the next 8 or 10 minutes just chatting a little bit about the different types of yoga. And there are descriptions on our website, but this might go into a little bit more detail. And if it's something that might appeal to you or interest you, we'd certainly love to see you in one of our classes. So we offer a variety of classes. The one that I'm going to discuss right now is called Flow Yoga, which is something that I did my teacher training in many moons ago, based on a particular style of flow yoga that was created by Kyla Kukla, who was my yoga teacher and who I did my teacher training with back in Toronto. And it really does draw upon the principles of Tantra and Kundalini. And its main components are the alignment, first of all, with the pose. So with the flow, it's a little different than Vinyasa and other kinds of flow in the sense that the poses really do move from one pose right into the next, almost presented like a dance-like movement, a meditative movement. So for the components of the flow, in keeping with the philosophy of the Tao, which is all about moving with the universal flow of the energy within our environment, our world, we start first and foremost with the alignment. And that's really just getting into the pose and focusing our concentration for the pose that we're actually in and getting aligned. And from there, we bring our breath into the pose after we've aligned ourselves with that. And then from there, we're going to move from the alignment straight into with the breath and the focus, bringing the breath in and bringing that energy in, that moving the energy as we're holding the pose. Then you surrender, because what's going to happen when you're in any asana, that would be posture, you'll find that there could be some resistance coming up or something that might be pushing you back and feeling like, okay, what's going on here? Or this feels different, or I'm getting a sensation that's arising. And it's in that particular perfect moment that you know that that's the time that you need to surrender and bring your breath into it. And then from there, we're basically moving from one pose right into the next and repeating the pattern all over again. So getting into that alignment, finding your breath, moving the energy with the pose and staying in the Tao and the flow of where the energy wants to go within that pose, finding where you are and that sensation, and then allowing yourself to surrender. And with anything in life, on the yoga mat, you're always going to come up against something that you're going to feel resistance from. And instead of trying to push against it, with the flow practice, and particularly bringing in the element and the philosophy of the Tao, the idea of staying in the flow and allowing yourself to perhaps circumnavigate the resistance that you might be feeling in your body. Because the resistance is the big thing, which is what keeps us from continuing our practice, from doing pretty much anything that we know is good for us in our life. So if we can know that when the resistance comes up, that's a totally normal, natural state of affairs, and that you can take that resistance and allow yourself to surrender into it and find another way to move around it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Yeah. Do her class. Classes. My main style of teaching is Vinyasa, and my training was in interdisciplinary yoga, is what they called it, which pulled from a lot of different kinds of yoga. It was based in Iyengar and Ashtanga and Baron Baptiste, and I think a couple other things. But it was really, so the way that I teach with Vinyasa, if you're not familiar with that, is it's very strength focused. So you're doing, it can be a lot of standing poses, and you're linking poses with what's called the Vinyasa sequence, which is a sun salutation, high plank, low plank, cobra, and down dog. So all of those poses are used to link up other strong standing poses. They help build strength in your body, create heat, build, but they help with your balance, particularly with a lot of different things with the standing poses and warriors and things like that. So we continually come back to the sun salutation portion in between, and we might hold poses for 5 to 10 breaths, some of the standing poses, which I think might be different from Alex's style of teaching. We tend to do like some warm-up stuff and then do some more of the strength stuff with some balance poses. and then a little bit of a cool down. But really the big thing with that vinyasa is that you're staying with the breath. No matter where you are, you're in the breath, you're in the sensation, which is, I think, a big similarity. Because what that does is it keeps you in this moment. If you're in your body and you're aware of, oh my gosh, look at that right hip, what's going on right there in this moment, then you can't be anywhere else, right? You can't be caught up in, oh my gosh, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? Or I can't believe what that person said to me yesterday. You know, like it just gets rid of all that and brings you into this moment, because this moment is really all we have. And that's so much of a big part of yoga, I think, for both of us. And so what I found with vinyasa, like a huge benefit for me is I was always bored going to the gym. I couldn't do the rep thing. It just couldn't keep my attention. But doing sun salutations in a flow and hour, 75 minutes, I don't think I've never been stronger than just doing, focusing on my own yoga practice. So that's something, if you're interested in building strength from a more spiritual focus, then I really recommend trying a vinyasa class.
Yeah. That's really interesting, and I'm glad you brought up the being in the moment and how the repetitions at the gym and other forms of exercise were hard to stay with it. Because the one thing I will add for my flow class, and obviously yours as well, because we're both hitting on the same thing, is the feedback I've gotten over the last 20 years that I've been teaching quite regularly is how time just completely is irrelevant in a really deep focused class. And that it's not that it goes fast, and it's not even that it goes slow. It almost doesn't exist. And I think that's when you really know you hit that sweet spot.
Absolutely.
In any really rich, deep practice. So
really
cool that I think that's I think the thing that I love the most about a good solid yoga practice is that it doesn't feel like the drudgery of having to show up and work out. It's something that you enjoy because it takes you to another place.
Right.
The ultimate magic carpet.
Yeah, that's right.
Your yoga mat. So the next thing we'll move on to is yin yoga. And I do a 1 hour yin class on Sundays at 11. And then both Tracy and I do sort of a hybrid kind of class where we both bring in the yin component. I call mine yin yang, which is yin and flow, because the flow is the yang, the muscle and the strength building, and vinyasa would probably be similar.
Totally.
And yours is yin and yin.
Right.
But essentially they're similar because you're bringing in both practices. And so for one half of the class, there would be the yin practice. At least that's how I do it. I don't know if you read between, but
I tend to do half and half as well.
So I usually start with the flow and then I finish off the last half with yin. And then there's the full yin class. So I guess the big question is, and I'll address quickly, just talking a little bit about the yin practice in and of itself. And it's essentially really focusing, first of all, I would almost call it a restorative class to some degree, although it is its own little, component of style of yoga, specifically called yin, really focusing in on the body parts that are either above the knee and below your navel. So we're looking at the areas that we're working essentially would be the low back, our hips, groin, and upper thighs. And it's basically dealing specifically with the connective tissue. So it's not as muscular, but it does draw upon supporting the muscles when the connective tissues are working really well. And that's this full area. So in chakra speak, it would be really addressing the first, second, and third chakras mainly, although there is a little bit harder than happening as well with that practice. And the poses are all done on the floor. They're anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes of holding each pose. So it's a slower practice than vinyasa than flow. So almost like the opposite of it. You're taking more time to get into the pose and more time being in the pose and just allowing yourself to feel what's going on and see what's beyond just the sensation. It's not enough to just feel the sensation and surrender into it. It's also you're surrendering and then you're giving yourself some time in that surrender to really get into that juicy marinating in the pose kind of feeling, which I often say in the class, marinating in the pose. And it's really helping to balance the yin, that's the connective tissues of our body, and the yang, the more musculature, as well as increasing the flow of prana in your body as you're holding the pose, you're breathing and holding into it. So you're really bringing a lot of juice in that beautiful pranic breath as you're holding the pose. And it's also helping to sort of maintain health with your connective tissues, which is sort of what we want to do. We want to keep them nice and supple. And then also developing, while you're holding the pose, a nice mindful meditative perspective as well. So that's a little bit about that. And I don't know if you'd like to speak to a little bit about the yin with regards to how you do it with your yin.
Well, one thing to add about it is that yin, like Alex mentioned, yin and yang, our lives are very yang. Like they are go, go, go. I mean, I don't know anybody whose life is really mellow, right? So if you already have a yang lifestyle and you're like and you're recognizing that you need to slow down, then yin is a really nice balance to that. Even if you also like a more active physical practice, it's for me personally, I really like the balance of the two, because it's kind of the reminder that there is this really active stuff that's going on, and then you slow down, and just that instant that you slow down, it's like then it's the realization that you come into something else that's like, oh yeah, this is the sweet stuff right here, where you're really like, where it's really meditative and heavy and grounding. And that's, yin's great balancing on its own, or in the class where you got the more active stuff too.
For sure. And it's really cool because you may not have time to do a yin class and a vinyasa class, but the beauty of the sequence of classes that we're offering every week is you can actually, if you've only got the time in the budget to do one class a week, either in person or online, you can choose to combine the two and get like the beautiful yin yang benefits of both.
Totally.
And like any really good yoga practice, it's really all about being in that moment, removing the blame and the judgment that we feel on a continual basis, and allowing ourselves to just accept ourselves as who we are and exactly where we are specifically on the mat in that moment. And that's the biggest takeaway, more than it's about the perfect pose or the perfect body or the physical stuff, which is all wonderful and beautiful and lovely. But really at the heart of it is self-care and self-love.
And speaking of self-care and self-love, the last class we want to talk about today is restorative yoga. So I teach a class, took a break from it right now, but for the summer, but I plan to offer it again in the fall. So restorative yoga it's similar to yin in a way, but it's even less intense, if you could imagine that, because yin you are putting some strain on the connective tissue. So you can feel a lot. It can be rather intense to be in a yin pose. With restorative, we're trying to do nothing but relax. So what that means is you want to have lots of props. You want to have bolsters and blocks and a strap and a couple blankets. So it's a prop intensive kind of a practice, but it's so worth it because you want to get yourself set up so that when you get into your pose, you can completely relax. And big benefit of restorative is reducing blood pressure, reducing stress and anxiety, like just really just takes everything down a notch, really helps you feel calmer. And we did a restorative series of videos. When was that? March, a few months ago now. So you can find that on our website. If you're curious about that, about some specific poses, check out those videos on blockhouseyoga.com for those restorative poses.
Super yummy too.
Yeah.
And you offer it when it was on the schedule, we'll be back in the fall on a Friday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like what a great way to start.
Yeah, Friday afternoon, right?
It's amazing.
Like, good way to go into your weekend and wind up your week. So yeah, did you have anything to add about restorative or anything else?
Other than just I love it and it's great, and I've done your restorative. One of my kids and I came home.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah.
So I thought we don't do good kind things to ourselves enough. So that's just one of those things that you could definitely throw on the schedule of your everyday weekly class and just give yourself that gift for sure.
Yeah.
Of any of the classes, really. I mean, that they're all benefit on varying degrees, but we hope that that's helped to sort of give you some more definition around what we're doing, and we really do hope to be opening really soon. In fact, this week possibly, and all classes will be back on deck and in person, and obviously we'll continue online. And we do hope to see you. We miss you all very much.
Yeah.
And the studio is waiting. So anyway,
See you soon.
Thank you.
Namaste.